Okay, we're going to get started. It is 11:18. We're going to call the meeting to order. I know we did it earlier, but we're going to stand for the pledge again. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to establish the quorum of directors. Everybody is here. Yep, they're all here. Meeting notice was posted. The attorneys advised us to notice the town hall as a meeting because there was a potential that all the board of directors members could be here. So we also had one item of board business to handle before we do the town hall portion. So that's why all the board members are sitting up there. It was brought to our attention that we did not officially propose a resolution for adoption of amendments to the membership vote. We don't believe that affects the validity of them if you vote on them, but just to be safe, we're going to take care of it today. So the vote on resolution for adoption of amendments as attached, Exhibit A, that is the same packet that you saw. Well, not that document, that's the resolution. This one, Exhibit A, the amendments to the declaration that are in your meeting packet. I'm gonna sit down in a second so you'll be able to see better. So we need to propose them as a vote to the membership. So I will be happy to make a motion that we propose the amendments to the declaration at the annual meeting.
I second.
Tracy seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passed unanimously, which is great. And I will sign that and get that done. The next item is going to be the open discussion of the annual meeting packet. If any of the board members need to leave to do other things, I know Rex and I are staying. I think some other people got to go. They have other stuff. You're more than welcome to leave. And we will officially adjourn the meeting at the end because this is technically an official meeting. But we're not voting on anything further. So at 11:20, who's leaving? You three are? Okay. At 11:20, Greg, Tracy, and Mike are leaving. I'm just noting it for the record. The rest of it will be us discussing the annual meeting packet, which is, I think, why you all stayed. Sit down.
Oh, boy, I feel real important.
Oh, man, he's got a press conference going on over there. He is ready. So I'm checking my Zoom stuff before I really get going. Oh, we only have 3 people this time.
Can y'all hear me in the back? Yeah,
Spotlight for everyone. Okay. I'm gonna get rid of that so people can see the screen better. Turn off that. Yep. Hit the wrong button. Wrong button, guys. There we go. Now it's not blocking the screen for the Zoom people. Okay. So there was a lot of stuff in the annual meeting packet. There's a lot of proposed amendments, there's questions about the budget, there's all sorts of things. So we are going to go through the content of the packet to make sure everyone understands what's happening. The doors for ballot collection, your proxy amendments, and the election ballots, collection will start at 9 a.m. We will stop collecting ballots at 11. So if you're not here by 11 a.m., we will not collect your ballot. You will be too late. They will have closed ballot collections. It will be here December 3rd at 11 a.m. The annual meeting will begin, and then immediately following, they'll have the organizational meeting like I discussed earlier. This gives you a bunch of information about how proxies cannot be used to elect directors, if you cannot attend the annual meeting, how you mail it in. So it's a whole bunch of instructions.
Back up there. The mail-in date. What date would you, well, they've got to be there by the time that the meeting is started, right? So.
Right. So if you're not going to mail it, where's my calendar? If it were me, December 3rd is not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday. If you don't get them in the mail early this week before Thanksgiving, I would either fill out one of the proxy forms and hand them to someone to turn in for you. If you do that, your election ballot must be sealed inside the blue envelope that they send you. There's a blue envelope for your election ballot and a white outer envelope for everything else. On your white outer envelope, you put your lot number or something to identify you. The blue envelope, you put nothing on. It is supposed to be an anonymous ballot for the election portion. The reason you put something on the outside is so that we know we actually got your vote. So the white envelope on the outer side tells us that someone has submitted their ballots, and they mark it down that, yes, we got a ballot packet from this person. It included a blue envelope, and they don't open the blue envelopes until they get here. So even though Leland's collecting them, they don't open them until they get here. The proxy questions, they do open and tally early, so they have less work when they're here.
That's not.
I'd prefer you not, but I'd have to check. In past years, they've allowed the envelopes to be turned into board members, and then we turn them into Leland when they get here. But I haven't asked that this year, so I don't know. If you're not going to be here, we can make arrangements for you and make sure you're taken care of, Phil. I have questions already. Ooh. You can vote electronically. In that same packet is, nope, where is it? I just posted it again to the Facebook group. This form is on the Facebook group, and it was mailed out to you. If you wish to vote electronically, you fill out your unit number, you print your email address neatly to consent to electronic communications and the electronic voting, signature, print your name, date, and then you send that back into Leland. And then they will add you to the electronic voting system. We finally got, the 1 year we did electronic voting, we used a small software vendor. We went with one this year, and we tried to last year, with a much larger firm that does electronic voting for HOAs and condo associations regularly. That's their game. So we went with them. So we will continue to use the same vendor, so the setup will be less cumbersome every year. But you do need to consent to it. The state of Florida requires us to have you consent to electronic instead of opting out of electronic. So I can't go in and change it for you. You have to do the work. Yes, sir. You would need, because you need to sign it, you would need to print it out and then scan it back in. The Gatehouse can assist if you don't have a scanner or something. We can print and scan up there, and we can send them, help you send them in if you don't have the ability to at home. Or if I'm around and I'm not running around like a chicken with its hair on fire, I can also help you if you need to. Back.
Matthew,
Yes, sir.
for some of the newer people, and even some of the people who have been in the park for some time now and don't have a clue how to sign on to the Leland website to get this information, do you have any insight on what they can do to achieve that?
So the easiest way to get to the resort's website, the association's website, is saltspringsresort.com. It will lead you directly to the Leland hosted website. At the bottom, there's an option for new resident. You can click it. If you're a new resident, you have to have your account number that Leland gave you for making payments and things like that. And you fill out the rest of your information and submit it. If that doesn't work, for whatever reason, or you don't have the account number, you can call resident support. Which, does anyone need the resident support number? Because I'll look it up and read it out loud if anyone needs it. No, okay. And then on the website, there's on the left bar, there's a document section, and you'll find meeting notices, annual meeting, financials, contracts, all kinds of things. And that's where most of these documents are held. Yes, ma'am. I got mine this week. I think Rex got his at his P.O. box here in the resorts in the past 2 or 3 days.
Yep.
So you should have gotten them. If you haven't gotten them, you can either print one out or they'll, Leland usually, Peter, has Leland dropped off envelopes up front yet? Okay. We can print out the packet for you if you need a copy. And Leland usually drops off the ballot envelopes for us, so that way we have the blue envelopes for people to use. And I'll make a note of that because they're not here yet.
Got a question right here. Go ahead.
Yes. It's better to do it than to not. I still have to fill out mine, ironically, but, you know.
While you're on the Leland website, there's a box down at the bottom, and it's check it to receive email notifications. Make sure you check it, because they'll send it out to you.
So this is the Salt Springs website, the homepage.
Robert has a question before you get moving on.
I don't know whether the legal issue is on the mail-in ballots, and you were talking about not getting them on time for the date. Is there a legal requirement that we have to accept them if the postage stamp is prior to that date and we haven't physically received it?
I'm not aware of that. I'm not an attorney also. The requirement for the association is to mail them out at least 14 days in advance of the meeting. They've been mailed, and we have a certificate of mailing that was done. But if you're mailing them back in, I mean, it's the USPS, so I mean, I'm tracking packages that should be here already that, you know, went to the other side of the country because it's the Postal Service.
Well, it was just a question. I don't know whether we're responsible to accept those ballots that came in that had a postage stamp prior to the date of closing. That's all.
I don't believe so. My understanding is no. When the ballot collection is closed, the ballot collection is closed. And then you have documents, and you can see different things here. I'm not logged in right now, so you can't see all the documents, but that's where you find them. And as far as Rex was saying, check the box to get your emails. If you log into the website and you go to profile, and one day it loads, maybe today, or not, go. Anyway. When that page loads, there's a section on the right side that has check boxes for you to subscribe to electronic communications, and that's what you need to select. Hey, there we go. So you put your email addresses in, and then on the right side, you have architectural letters, compliance coupons, delinquency letters, newsletters, and just check them all. I mean, we don't really send out a whole lot of stuff. We're not spamming you. And this way you'll be able to get the emails when we send stuff through MailChimp. I think the last time I looked at it and sent one, there was 335 subscribers. So it's been getting better. Last year it was 200 something. So more people are subscribing, which is great. Back to this. Limited proxy. So this is probably where most people are gonna have their questions. You fill in your unit number. That's important. If you own multiple units and you're not the developer, you get to vote for each lot you own. I heard there was some information on Facebook that was confusing people, but if you own, like I own 2 lots right now. My dad owns one, so I get to vote for, I get to fill out 2 of these packets, basically. The developer has his own special requirements because he's the developer. So that is different for him, but for everyone else that's the owner, unit owner inside the resort, we vote for all of the lots that we have. So if you own 2 lots, you get to fill out 2 of these packets. If you own 6 lots, you get to fill out 6 of these packets. If you don't have to specify anything here, you can. If you don't put anything in there, it indicates that Greg will be your proxy holder, which is fine. You can put whoever you want as long as someone can sign in your ballot for you. And then you fill out your opinions. So you fill out what you want here. If you leave it blank, is it on this one? Here's amendments, acknowledgement. I don't see it on this one. So it doesn't look like it applies this year. I would encourage you to fill it out, yes or no. Don't leave it blank. We want your opinions, that's why we're asking you. The first question on here is, do you approve amending sections 218, 219 to allow recreational tiny vehicles, tiny houses, and RV park models that have certifications other than RVIA? So you heard us talk earlier about Tracy talked about the tiny house and how we had to make that lady leave because her unit did not comply with our declaration. Our declaration has not been updated in a long time. Doesn't mean that it's wrong, it just means that it's a little old. There's new certifications for RVs and park models outside of RVIA. So the proposed amendments, do I have it open in a separate one? Because that would be super convenient. There it is. So we referred to RVIA. They're talking about, we're asking you if you want to remove RVIA and add in the standards that RVIA is using, meaning that any other vendor that certifies units, as long as they're using the NFPA 1192 and ANSI 119.5 standards, it would be accepted as a valid certification. So rather than saying RVIA is the end all be all, the best thing in the world, we only care if they did it, or do we want to accept other certification bodies? Yes, sir. Depending on the type of unit, either the gatehouse is supposed to be checking, and they check for RVIA currently, usually. And for park models, they have a paperwork process through ARC where you have to check that. As far as there being other types, it's not something we run into a lot right now. But you're right, it could become a problem. We're leaving it up to the owners if they want to do this. Right. So RVIA on their sticker actually says NFPA 1192 and ANSI, or well, depends on what standard they used, but it does say the standard. I believe NOAA's sticker says the same thing, NFPA 1192, ANSI 119.5, and they have another one. They do a third one. So okay. The reason we chose to go with standards instead of individual bodies is because the bodies change. The standards have not been changing. The text in the standard might change, but NFPA 1192 has not been deviated from. Right. Okay. Right, that's why we selected the standards, so that as more vendors start to become certification bodies, we don't have to amend it to add a new vendor. They're using the standards. So that is,
Excuse me, but it's is a debate not between the board and Mr. Rooster. Mr. Rooster actually should be addressing us as the audience because it's a vote that's presented to us. The board has presented it to you. You need to educate yourself and to find out whether you want to approve it or disapprove it. It's up to the owners. That's why it's on the ballot.
yeah, we don't get to make this choice, you guys do. So if you don't want it, vote no. If you do want it and you think it's a great idea, vote yes. And by all means, do your research. It's one of my favorite things to tell people. Do your research. Look into it. Find out what the implications could be. And if you think it's a bad idea, vote no. That's why we're asking you. Well, also, it's a state requirement that we can't change the declaration without your approval. So that we literally can't do it without you. The tiny house has, as far as changing the RVIA, has been discussed in extensively at these meetings. We talked about it a lot before we changed our decision on staying the enforcement. We talked about it when it first came up. I mean, that has been at a bunch of different meetings. Yes, we were. We talked about it every time because we said we were looking into changing us from the certification body being the end-all be-all to the standard being the end-all be-all. Yeah. I mean, you're going to have to, every RV or unit you buy, even if it's from one of the third-party places, gives you a certification sheet. And it says that your unit is certified and under NFPA 1192 or ANSI, blah, 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 or HUD, or whoever the certifying standard was, and then the certifying body being NOAA or RVIA or any of the other ones is also on there. And then there's usually a sticker on the outside. So I mean, it's up to you guys. The second question is specifically for tiny houses. So do the owners want to allow tiny houses as a category? We wanted to separate the two issues. We didn't want the definition update to be tied to the tiny house because you may like the definition update, but you may not like the idea of a tiny house. So we're creating a separate category. That way they can, we're going to mimic the category of recreational vehicles because it's the closest group they apply to because they still move. You don't take the axles out. They're almost park models, but they just don't set them up that way. So that is what the second one is. Does anyone have any questions about what that means? Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you, Tim. Does anyone not understand what I was saying about NFPA or ANSI? Was anyone confused? Brenda? You're not changing your park model. Yes. It's not exact. We're not changing. So when we discussed it at the meeting and we were talking about the tiny house and it being here and people were saying it wasn't compliant, we said we'll bring it to the annual meeting for you guys to decide if you want to allow tiny houses. That's what this is. The first thing was just a definition change. You can go with it or not. It's up to you guys. Depending on who the certifier is, they use ANSI 119, I already forgot the numbers. The ANSI A119.5 or NFPA 1192 are the two safety standards that are used for park models, RVs, tiny houses. There's some other ones, but those are the main standards. That's why we wanted to reference those versus who was looking at it. They would still have to get an independent certification. So right. Tiny houses generally do have the wheels left on them because they are technically mobile still. Yes. Okay. Number 3 is my favorite. Do you approve amending section 2.26 to remedy a typo that refers to the wrong section of the Condominium Act? I think we should all just vote yes for that because it's a typo and we need to fix it. Our documents haven't gone through a huge overhaul on the declaration in a long time. We just did the bylaws because we had to track down the bylaws because they weren't signed or recorded. So we did that. The declaration, we got what's called a restated declaration. So we took all the amendments that have been done through time up to now, put them into one document. And from there, we reviewed. The attorneys reviewed to make sure that we were in compliance with things. We reviewed to make sure that what we were currently doing in the resort matched the declaration. Because if not, we need to try and change the declaration or change what we're doing. Some of the stuff we've been doing for 10 plus years. So it's a little harder to change that. So what they did is they went through and a lot of the amendments that they proposed, because I think there's 33 of them, 33 or 35, some of them refer to developer powers that were the items that were in the declaration are actually for pre-turnover. Well, the association's been turned over for a long time. We don't need those items anymore. So most of this is administrative cleanup, except for those tiny house things we just talked about, because that is a functional change. We didn't do many functional changes, but there are a couple. So do we want to fix the typo? Probably want to fix that. Do we want to approve amending a section that provides the association, not the developer, has the right to impose easements upon common elements? At this point, the developer isn't in charge of the association anymore, so we need to change that around. Do you approve amending 6.1 to identify the correct number of units in all phases of the condominium? That's just another thing that didn't get updated over time. And if you have a question about one of these, just please raise your hand. I'll pause and I'll pull up the big section and we can. Dana? The amendments are drafted, so they're included in the packet, the long text explanation, not just the proxy form. So they're drafted. All they get is inserted into the declaration and we record it. Last time I checked, recording fees are $10 for the first page and 30 cents for each additional page after that. So we've already spent the money on this, basically. The rest of it is just print it out and sign it and file it. All phases, okay. Okay, this one is a little different. Do you approve amending section 7.2B to set a procedure for approving alterations to the common elements? If the alteration costs in excess of 5% of the budget, a majority of members at the meeting which a quorum is present would need to approve. If the alteration costs less than 5% of the budget, or if it's necessary to protect or maintain the common elements, the association could make those alterations without a membership vote. What this would do is it would give, I'm trying to think of a good example. Our roads kind of go all kinds of like this, and some of the areas we've paved around trees just because they didn't remove the trees. So instead of the road being a straight road that made sense, it kind of goes around stuff. If this was passed, we wouldn't need a vote to straighten that road if we went back to paving. So if we had the asphalt repair guys in here repairing everything else and we wanted to fix a section of road that wasn't in the correct format for what we do today, we would be able to do that without asking for a membership vote. It does have the 5% of the annual budget is what's listed there. So that's roughly, I think, $60,000, which is a lot of money. Most projects, we wouldn't have the funding to even do it without the membership vote because we would have to budget it for future years. But it does give the association some liberty to be able to take care of some things without a membership vote. Now, it does have in there that if it's necessary to maintain or protect the common elements, the association is allowed to do it without a membership vote. That's already a part of the declaration, or not the declaration, the 718 statute. So that's what that one is. Does anyone have any questions about that one? Yes. Roughly, yes. Because it would be 5% of the annual budget, and the annual budget's roughly 1.2 million, so 5% of that's about 60. But it doesn't mean we just go and, hey, I'm going to spend $60,000 today because I feel like it. It would still have to be something that the association needs. You'd still hear about it at a meeting. The board would still have to vote to do it, but we wouldn't have to wait till an annual meeting or have the cost of mailing out ballots for everybody or proxy forms for everyone to vote on a material alteration that probably just makes sense. Right now, we, unless it's that one line in there, unless it's necessary to protect or maintain the common elements, that line is the only time we can do it without a vote right now. So if it's necessary to protect the security, health, or safety of the resort and its owners, we can do it if we need to. It's kind of like an emergency out. If something's wrong, we can take care of it. But in the maintenance yard, have any of you been in the maintenance yard or seen it? No? Oh, you have. There's a lean-to shed thing. I don't know what to call it. It's where we park the mowers. It's about it's not even 5 feet tall. It's probably 4.5, maybe 5 feet tall. And we drive the mowers under there. The thing is dilapidated and falling apart. It is one of the most hideous things I've ever seen in my life. And we don't have enough room in there to park all our equipment. So we have some mowers that have to sit with tarps or just not covered. One of the other questions we'll get to is about this exact structure. We have to get a vote to replace that structure because the replacement structure we need to make larger to include the rest of the equipment and mowers we have because we bought that new mower, which we would like to keep protected. It doesn't fit. So we're in the process of getting information together to build essentially a pole barn, just a roof. So the thing is 20 by 30 or something. It's the open space next to the event shed in there to park all the equipment. We can't do that without a material alteration vote right now because we're changing the footprint, so it's a material alteration. If we were just replacing the structure in the same size and format, we wouldn't need to. If this amendment had passed, we wouldn't have to propose the amendment to be able to build the structure in the same spot that's slightly larger to house the equipment. Does that make sense? Did that help at all? Yes, ma'am. So the board should be acting in its best judgment to make sure that we have the funding or plan for the funding for the project. The only time that you should have a special assessment is if you don't have the funding and you must have it. Like we needed it for the lift station, we needed it for some other things, and that's why we did the special assessment. In general, if you're managing your reserves well and planning your projects well, you should not have a special assessment. That's why we're, excuse me, that's why we're working on getting the reserve study done and things like that. So I can't say no, it's not a potential, because technically it is, but I would pray that no board would be doing that, because that would be very, very bad.
You got a question in the back?
Changing this? This particular item was recommended by the attorneys because it's hard sometimes to get a quorum, and if there's not a quorum, you can't a membership vote. Okay, I'm still talking here.
No, there's the one right there, the lady over here.
Yes, yes. Yes. Yeah, to make any changes to the resort that's not a direct replacement in the exact same color and size in general requires a membership vote for a material alteration. But if this goes through, the board is now allowed to do smaller things without that, is the idea. Yes, it's to the common elements. Right. Yeah, so if the total project cost is estimated to be over $60,000, we would have to get a membership vote. If it's under, we would be able to do it without the membership vote. It would be a board vote. I don't know. I mean, we would run out of money. Yeah. Okay. The next question is, do you approve amending section 8.1 to make new owner who acquires title jointly liable with previous delinquent owner for unpaid assessments, as long as the owner is not the first position mortgage holder or its assignee? This amendment would bring the documents in line with section 718.116 of the Condominium Act. This is an administrative cleanup item. This was just recommended that we do it, which makes sense. We want to recover as much delinquent funds as we can, so we want to be able to recover those whenever possible. The next one, do you approve deleting section 8.3, which relieved the developer from certain assessment obligations when the community was first created? Again, he's no longer the developer. He's still the developer. He's no longer in control of the association. We don't need a bunch of these items. Do you approve amending section 8.8 to clarify the association's lien for unpaid assessments, interest, blah, blah, blah? This amendment would bring the documents in line with section 718. This is another one that the statute changed. We didn't. So we're just coming up in times with the statute. The next one is the association may recover 12 months of past due assessments if the first position mortgage holder forecloses on a lot. This would bring us in line with 718. We want to recover past due assessments. We have several items that are with the attorney right now working on foreclosure. Some stuff's in pre-foreclosure, some stuff's about to hit foreclosure. We have a lot of intent to liens and with attorney statuses right now. We've been very vigilant in actually getting those over to them and making sure that we're actually taking the collection process seriously because it was neglected for so long. Do you approve amending section 10.2 to make the insurance requirement consistent with section 718 of the Condominium Act and to clarify the association does not insure concrete pads and driveways on each lot? A lot of people don't have concrete pads anymore. They've changed them around. The association should be covering the utilities and the infrastructure and things that it owns and maintains in the resort, but the stuff on your lot is yours. Do you approve amending section 11.1 to make repair for casualty event consistent with 718? And to clarify, unit owners repair concrete pads and driveways. Listen, if we get a storm that takes out concrete pads, I'm just gonna be impressed. And also, we have really big problems. Do you approve amending section 12.1A1 to provide that no lot shall have more than one recreational vehicle, mobile home, RV park model, or other residential accommodation unless advanced approval is given by the association? That's a cleanup of rearranging items from other spots. We already have this rule. It's just being clarified and cleaned up. Do you approve amending 12.1A2 to provide that any building structure residential accommodation must comply with lot modifications and may not be placed on a lot for more than 30 days without prior approval of the association? Yeah. So this is how we catch the ugly Bluebird buses that come in through the gate at night and come in and they're here and they're staying, and it looks like some what's that old show? I don't know. Yeah, like the Beverly Hillbillies or whatever. That's what I'm thinking of. To keep that from happening. The next one is a new subsection saying that you would have to have advance approval for a recreational vehicle that is older than 10 years. This is a change. Here's the story with this. Most resorts, if you RV and go places, have this rule. If your unit is over 10 years old, they will not let you in. They're just not interested. Most of them, from what I've been told talking to people that RV a lot, if you say it's older than 10 years, you're SOL. We thought that was a little excessive because some people take really, really good care of their units, and they could have a 15-year-old unit that looks better than the 3-year-old unit. So we said we wanted to put that rule in there. This is mostly going to affect the rentals, the people that are coming in to rent for the weekend or the month or the 6 month. We're not going to go through the entire park and check everybody's RV to make sure that they're 10 years young. This is to keep us from having, we've had units come in with plywood over the sides of their slides because they just took the slide out and didn't put the slide back. So it's to help with things like that. We are going to, if this goes through, we'll make a list for the gatehouse. So when they're coming in, if it's over 10 years old, you have to submit 4 photos, one of each side of your unit, to the gatehouse, and they'll look at it and be like, yeah, that's decent looking. You can come. It's fine. Or, oh my Lord, no, no, no. Okay.
So the approval is going to come from the gatehouse because that's who's going to receive these emails?
Yes.
Or is it going to be brought to 2-3 board members?
The original plan is to have it go to the gatehouse, but that rule, and that's a rules and regulations item, so it's not as complicated to change as getting permission to enact one. Yes. Everything. Really? Really? Yeah, so a lot of the people that are renting their units out are going to have to add a question: is your unit older than 10 years old? If so, please contact us. And then they'll have to submit the photos to the gatehouse to get approval. We haven't had a whole lot of them that, it's not like it says the year on the side of it in big letters as I drive by, but I don't think it's going to be as big of a problem as it could be, but it'll be something to help clean up the resort and keep really dilapidated units from existing here for 6 months. What we've been doing is if a unit comes in and it looks terrible and it's older than 10 years and it's not compliant, Greg and I went and talked to one couple. We've gone and talked to a bunch of different people and said, hey, we just want to let you know your unit's not in compliance with the resort. We're not kicking you out. You're only here for another day. But just know for next time that you're going to you're going to have problems trying to get it back in. And everyone's been really understanding with that. So the reason we put the 30-day thing in there is because if the unit's going to be here for 30 days or more, we really want it to be something that we don't mind looking at, you know. This one's good. Clarify how many vehicles may be parked on a unit. There was duplicative language that it's removing, and also we talked about it a lot. Many of us have guests come in and we have 2 vehicles and then they park a third one on our driveway, and then, you know, the nosy neighbor yells at you because you have 3 vehicles on your lot and you're only allowed to have 2. When they're right. Our documents say that you can only have a maximum of 2 vehicles. This amendment will remove that restriction of 2 vehicles, but say that the vehicles must be parked on the unit's property and not obstructing the roadway. So they can't be hanging out into the road or anything. But if you have room for it, most of the time, I don't see driving around anyone that has, you know, a car lot. They might have 3 or 4 vehicles, but they're here for a day or 2 and then they're gone and it goes back to their 1 or 2. So rather than have a rule that we're not enforcing, which is bad, let's remove it and clean it up so that way people can use their property how they will. No. Yes.
As long as they're on your property.
They have to be on your property. They still have to be titled and registered and all that stuff. They can't be on cinder blocks, you know. I mean, all of that stuff still goes to the regular rules and regulations where you inspect things. But in the rules and regulations, we have the 2 vehicle rule, which mimics the declaration. So we want to be able to change that so we allow people to park more than 2 vehicles on their unit. No.
Negative.
It's these motorized vehicles. So motorbikes, SUVs, trucks, cars, all that good stuff.
Whoa. You're saying a motorcycle's going to be included in that? You're not just referring to trucks and cars.
I mean, motorcycles are vehicles. I mean, they were included, I thought. I don't know. It wouldn't matter anyway, too. Why is this happening?
Need another mic? Got 2 over here.
Now I'm the pink one. There. Now I'm not cutting in and out. That's better. Okay, so that would remove the 2 vehicle maximum. Delete the language, signs, obscene and political. Okay, so we went over the flag thing and signs because that has been a hot button issue for this resort since I've been here, honestly. So fat fingers. So they want to delete the language referring to obscene and or political and change it to limited to for sale or for rent signs. This does not mean your little cutesy, crafty Etsy store wood sign is a problem. This would be the for sale and for rent signs. The flags, which I'm pretty sure is down further in the list, but I'll mention now. The way it read before, it made it sound like on certain holidays you were allowed to have flags for the military groups and different things. We took out the section where it restricted it to just those times. Like if you want to fly your Marine flag, by all means, fly your Marine's flag. I mean, and we kept with the maximum of 3 flags per lot. So that way, you know, it's not a flag fest, but you can still have a couple flags and be okay. And we updated the sizes to match the Florida statute, which is 4x6 maximum size. So we did not restrict it to only American flags. You can have flags, but it would still be governed by the rules and regulations document, which I believe says no obscene or political content. I don't have that open. But this was the declaration is the one where we have to get all of you guys to update it. And it's very difficult to update because we have to get you guys to vote for it, put it in, and then we have to make our other rules match or be more restrictive. I'm sorry? I don't think the rules and regulation one has the political thing in it. I'd have to check. Associated removal of pets. Do you approve amending section 12(1)(a)(17) to allow the association to demand removal of pets that violates the restrictions, exhibits violent or aggressive behavior, or becomes an unreasonable source of nuisance or annoyance to the neighbors? This was recommended to clean up some of the other stuff we had in the declaration about pets. Basically, if your dog's attacking people constantly, you might want the association to have the right to tell them that they can't have their dog here anymore. No, and I said dog, but it does say pets, so it could be any type of pet. It could be an attack kitty or something, I don't know. Do you approve amending section 12(1)(a)(19) to bring restrictions on clotheslines in line with Florida law? And I will, let's see, that is 12(1)(a)(19). Because I've been asked about this a lot over the years. Yep, basically you have to put them away when they're not in use. They cannot just be left out. 19, must be removed at night when not in use. So pretty simple, you're allowed to use them, just don't leave them up all the time. Or be using them all the time, either or. Do you approve amending section 12(1)(a)(22) to allow the display of flags of the armed forces in order to comply with section 718.1134? I just talked about that a second ago. Do you approve creating section 12(1)(a)(22) to prohibit conducting trade or business in units unless the business is not apparent and detectable by sight, sound, smell from the outside of the unit, complies with zoning laws, and does not involve visitors or solicitation? We have a very similar rule already. It's not clear. We've had multiple arguments with people about it over the years. This clears it up, and basically the litmus test is if you stand in the street and you looked at the unit and you go, I don't smell anything weird, I don't really hear anything weird, and I don't see anything weird, we're good. It's not right for the association to tell you that you can't work from home, or that you can't have an online business that you manage from your house, or that, I'm trying to think, I always go back to realtor. But if you're a realtor and you conduct work from your house, but you don't meet clients at your house or bring them into the resort, that's fine. You're allowed to do those types of things. You're not allowed to impact the other members of the community for your business. So you can't have, you know, or semis coming in every day, dropping off and picking up stuff from your lot because you're now a manufacturing business. You can't do stuff like that. But the lady that makes jellies and jams at home and sells them to her neighbors and friends, that's fine as long as she's good with the state, which we don't even want to get involved in that. It's just, it cleans it up as to what's really allowed, because that's been a question that many people have brought up over the years. Amending section 12(5) of the declaration to clarify and ensure consistency in parking restriction and revise the definition of commercial vehicles. That's also been something that's been brought up several times. What defines a commercial vehicle? What definition are you using? The resort, if you agree to this, will be using a definition that is referenced from the state for commercial vehicles. Thank you, DHSMV. He's got the words. Commercial vehicle will be any vehicle designated or intended for trade or business purposes. Any vehicle that has more than 4 axles, any vehicle that has more than 2 axles, or more than 4 the difference being people were asking, well, there's stickers on the side of this car. Is it a commercial vehicle? Well, the company might have given you a pickup truck to drive home, but it's still a regular pickup truck and it says something on the side. As long as it's not impacting the other unit owners, it's not an undue impact at being 40 feet tall or having 16 ladder racks on it or, being massive. Why would we want to take that benefit away from someone who got that benefit from their company? So that's where that came in. We have one gentleman that lives in the park. They're an owner. He works for Spectrum. He drives a Spectrum van. So it's a little tiny van and it has one little ladder on top. We don't think that we should tell him that he can't bring his take-home vehicle into the resort. We just don't think that's fair. However, if you have a 6-axle vehicle with a crane bucket on the top, that probably is a little much to be in this tiny little resort. So that's where we went with that definition. Yeah, but it's still talking about the weight and everything else, so. And any vehicle that has more than 2 axles. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Amend section 14.3 of the declaration to provide prevailing party in an action to enforce the governing documents is entitled to recover all attorney's fees and costs. That's pretty normal. We want to recover costs whenever we can. So do you approve deleting section 15.2 of the declaration, which gives the developer the ability to amend the declaration? I personally don't want him doing any of that, so I would prefer to remove that section. Do you approve deleting section 18.8 in the declaration, which obligates the association to indemnify and hold the developer harmless from liability arising out of maintenance of the stormwater management system, even if such liability is occasioned by acts of the developer? So basically that's saying that if he messes something up, do we still want to hold him harmless? Probably not. So you would want to remove that section. And a lot of these are from the original development. It was what I was saying earlier, that these are from the original set of paperwork, so it's back when he had control of the association. Should any excess membership income over membership expenses for the year ending this year be deferred to 2023 membership expenses? Basically, if we have money left over, do you want us to carry it over? Yeah, pretty logical. Do you approve installation of new, okay, this is one of the ones that's we added. Installation of new street signs, including yield signs, stop signs to improve safety and regulate traffic within the community. We talked about at previous board meetings, the street signs. My girl over there, Miss Brenda, she's on me with the signs. We got quotes for some of it. We talked about those in talking with Leland and everybody else. They said, just to be safe, you should get a material alteration authorization for it. The safety exception might apply, but we can ask the membership while we're at it. So this would allow us to put stop signs where they're missing, because there's a lot of them missing. We went around and I went with Jerry Labor. I don't know if he's here. We went around and counted up all the signs and got all that information together. The street names, the green signs on the top, they're all falling off. They did not weather well, and the stickers are all peeling off of the green signs because they're not actually DOT signs, so they're failing. So we want to be able to replace them in the coming time, and we need your approval to be able to do that. Oh, the maintenance barn thing I talked about. Do you approve replacing the dilapidated barn in the maintenance yard with a concrete pad and a pole barn that will provide shelter for the association's maintenance equipment. If approved, the funds will come primarily from the building reserve account, which is true. We have a reserve account for replacement and repair of buildings. That building is dying and it needs some love. The board proposed partially, okay, this is the budget one. So we did a lot of updates to the resort in this year. I mean, we got the trash compactor changed around. We got the lift station taken care of that finished earlier this year. We got the street lights. We did a lot of stuff. And most of that stuff was funded through the reserve accounts. Well, the reserve accounts are now trying to recover that funding in a very shortened period of time because it doesn't know that we now have extended life in those. And unfortunately, it was not detected until much later that the reserve table was trying to do this. So we rounded the figures down. So the board voted to approve the 606 per quarter budget, which is the fully funded budget in the packet, which I can probably show because it's probably down here somewhere. Getting warmer. 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 Should have just opened it from the other packets. Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh. There it is. I got it. So we voted to approve budget option A. Which is the fully funded budget. That's the only one the board could approve and send out without violating statute, because we're not allowed to underfund the reserves technically without your approval. Option B is what we really want to do, which is 595. It's not a huge difference, but it's still a difference. The main difference between those two items is going to be in the reserves section. So this first column was this year. This is how much we funded into the reserves this year. So a total of $25,407, roughly. The farthest column over here is what we're proposing for next year. We rounded some of the numbers down, but for the most part, we kept them on track with what we were doing. The middle column is what the reserve table spit out that we're supposed to fund, because we took a whole bunch of money out of water and sewer for the lift station. So instead of putting $3,000 in, it's trying to recover $14,600. There are ways to fix this, but we were getting the reserve study done. So we said, you know, instead of futzing with this reserves table, in 2023, when we do the next year's budget, we'll have an updated reserve table based on a reserve study from a qualified auditor. So we're doing it that way. So that question on the, of course, now I scrolled and now I got to go back up to where the freaking question was. Almost there we go. So this question is to allow us to go with the 595 budget. You guys have to approve it, because we're technically, according to the reserve table, underfunding the reserves, which may or may not be the case. We don't have the reserve study back yet, so I can't tell you if they think that we're underfunding it. So that's what that question is. So if you want your dues to be $595 per quarter, you vote yes to this one. Do you approve using reserve funds? Okay, this is pooled reserves. So in discussion with Leland over the past few years and the attorneys, it was recommended that we switch to pooled reserves, meaning that if a capital expenditure or deferred maintenance item for which the association maintains a reserve account and it's pooled, we might be underfunded in one, but we're allowed to use the available cash to fix that project because it needs to happen now, and then the funding would continue to balance out. It makes it a little easier for some things. Right now we have straight line reserves, so what we put into building can only be used for building unless we come and ask you for a membership vote. Pooled reserves, we still can only use what's put in for building, but if there's not enough money there, we can take it from the other sections in there to take care of that problem right then, instead of having to do a special assessment to balance out that one straight line item. They still work the same way, but it gives you a tiny bit of flexibility in being able to actually continue things that need to be done. So that's the last question, is the pooled reserves. And then you sign, and if you have your ballot being turned in by someone else, you can do the proxy holder thing there. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, sir, you were first. Oh, so you're going to ask me really good questions, is what you're going to do. Okay. Yeah. So there's 499 units in the resort. I forget what our quorum requirement is off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it said it at the top of that document. It usually does. Sure. So it's 2/3. So that would be, yeah. Multiply, Matthew, multiply. Yeah, I think it states it somewhere, but times 0.6. So roughly 300. It would be 2/3-ish. The benchmark for approving a declaration amendment and a material alteration and some other things, they're all different. The 2/3 is for declaration amendments, if I recall correctly. Rooster's the walking book on that, so he might have the data there. And I think simple majority is material alterations. Okay. So but we can have a different one in our declaration. Yeah. Okay. So there are different benchmarks for the different items, and they can be set differently by the ownership. So if you wanted the benchmark to be different, we can propose that amendment next year, and you could change it. But that's a decision that the owners make, not the board makes. What was your other question? I think that. Yeah, it's 2/3. It's 2/3. Most of it's going to be 2/3. Right. Right.
Of who voted.
Yeah.
Of the voting membership, it's 2/3, not of the whole park. Right,
Yeah.
right. Yep.
Yes. Yep. Did I see another hand? Oh, yes, sir. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree.
Go ahead.
So in the budgets, No, bulk cable is a $0 item. In both the budget the board approved and the budget that we're hoping you guys approve at the annual meeting. But because that item was no longer an expense, it was able to cover a lot of the insurance increases and legal fee increases. So that's why you didn't see a large reduction in your dues. It was able to absorb a lot of the expenses that we were going to have to add regardless. And then once this nonsense is done and we get our insurance back into a reasonable manner, hopefully these things go back down.
On the 30 line items to be voted on, let's say somebody overlooks one, didn't check yes or no. How is that line item then counted? Or isn't it?
Well, I was reading it to check and see. There's been some that had an automatic yes, but I did not see that in this one. It would.
Right there.
My understanding is that it would be a no then, because there's no statement in here saying that it would be considered a yes if left blank.
And it doesn't state it.
What?
It doesn't state it in there right now.
No, I did not see that anyway. I just read it again to check. I mean, in the last annual meeting, it actually said on there that any options that are left blank will be considered a yes. I think that this one just had a lot of items on it, and we didn't go that route. The other thing that I'm thinking is some of the items I would be okay with getting an automatic yes on if it was blank, but some of the other ones I wouldn't be, personally. The ones that are changing function, I don't think I'd really want that. The administrative cleanup items, I think would be great if that was the case, since it's kind of different and split up across different categories. Yes. Yes. So if your units are in a trust or owned by a corporation or an LLC or anything like that, where there could be multiple people that have voting privileges technically by the state, only one person can be designated as the person that's allowed to vote. So you have to have a voting certificate. In the past, there's a reason that we didn't have them at the last one, is in the past, the association has not required voting certificates for anything. But if you do have one, like I have mine in a land trust, I need to fill out a voting certificate to make sure that my votes are, I mean, no one else can vote by me, but, yeah. So if you do have any end-of-life planning done like that with trusts or anything, living wills and things like that, that your properties are deeded to, then you would need a voting certificate. Oh, hello. Oh, the pooled reserves. Okay, the bold type. Yeah. 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 So, yeah, that's a statement saying that, you know, when you're talking about reserves and budget things, we have to put this disclaimer on by the statute. The question you asked about, though, number 30, is pooled reserves. So right now we have straight line reserves or single item reserve, not straight line, that's depreciation. We have single item reserves. So we have an account on the balance sheet and P&L for buildings, and then one for golf carts, and one for roads or pavement or something like that. If we need go, say we needed to repave the resort tomorrow, we don't, by the way, but say we did. We have $50,000 in there, but it's going to cost us $200,000. In pooled reserves, we would be able to take a partially funded project and borrow from the other items. So if we know that we're not doing any fencing for the next few years, we can borrow the money from another project in the pooled reserves account. It gives it a little more flexibility instead of looking at it and going, oh, we need to repave the roads. We have 50K, we need another 150. Our only option now is to do a special assessment instead of being able to pull from one of the other reserve accounts that's not needed at that time. Yes, it helps us not have to do that. Also, the reserve study will help a lot not having to do that. I will not tell you how to vote ever. I will tell you how I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote for yes because it made so much sense to me when they talked about it. And originally, like 2 years ago, when Leland came back as our property manager, they had mentioned we should do pooled reserves several times. And I was like, this place is on fire on a regular basis. I don't want to talk about pooled reserves right now. I want to talk about what's going on. And we finally got around to it this year, putting it in as an option. Well, if no one else has any other questions, I'll be here for a long time cleaning up, I'm sure. We're going to adjourn this meeting at 12:36. Are you good with that, Rex? You're the only guy left. You good? All right. Thank you all for coming. If you have additional questions, I'll be here forever cleaning up my mess of electronics.